And good evening, everybody, and welcome to Going Nuclear, full blown coverage of the land. I am Ethan Greenberg, and alongside of me is my co host, Mike Rasinski. And joining us here tonight, Jose Davis, former Kent State Golden Flash quarterback and men's basketball player. Jose, thank you so much for joining us here this evening. We really do appreciate it. Glad to have you in for the evening.
I appreciate you having me on. Been looking forward to this since we talked last week.
Absolutely. I was so glad to hear back from you. This is amazing. It's kind of crazy, Mike. I don't know if you share, since you and I worked for the Kent Stater at our time, during our time at Kent State University, we obviously covered some of these athletes, and it's nice to catch up with you because, though we were there at the same time, and we're all students, it's like still the athletes were the athletes. And so, maybe we didn't have as many, experiences with the athletes. But it's great to catch up with everybody. Jose, again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So, Jose, Kent State University quarterback, Kent State men's basketball player. You grew up in Bel Air, as you told me, as I read up here. And for those that don't know, and I wasn't exactly sure where that was, but I understand from you, it's on the border of Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, we literally can travel, within 10, 15 minutes and hit all three states.
So, which state is your favorite?
Obviously Ohio. It's not even going to be close.
I just had to check. I know when I drive through, I try and avoid Pennsylvania when I'm headed home, to Ohio from Virginia. I'm like, I'll just go through West Virginia. I don't need to go through Pennsylvania.
There you go.
So fantastic to have you on, Jose. And so wanted to, in having you here, wanted to touch on a number of things, find out how you're doing, what you've been up to, talk about your Kent State career, your family, and also get some insights here talking about high school, college sports, basketball, football, and get your opinions since this, we do normally talk Cleveland sports. Would love to have some opinions here on what's going on in the pro sports landscape, specifically for Cleveland. Now, Mike, you covered, as we were just discussing here, you covered Jose for the Daily Kent Stater back in 1999. So, Jose, do you want to tell us about your journey from high school to college and how you ended up at Kent State University?
So, obviously went to Blair High School, 1996 grad. Coach Todd Murgatroyd was a recruiting coordinator at Kent State at that point in time. Charlie Molnar was the offensive coordinator. Jim Corrigal was the head football coach at that point in time.
Right.
Had went on, had some offers at some different places. And what's crazy is that, Coach Tressel was the head football coach at Youngstown State. He was my first official offer of a senior in high school, which is wild nowadays because, the way that the landscape, and we'll get into this with college football now, I was offered a scholarship during week 13 of my high school senior year, which is unheard of nowadays. If you're senior year and you're, 9 times out of 10, you're not getting a Division I offer that late. But anyway, so fast forward, I go on a few visits, and I actually did Youngstown State and Kent State back to back. So I went to Youngstown State, and it was my running back linebacker was with me as well. His name was Richie Mamie. We're on a visit there. Loved everything about it. YSU. We had a local guy who was from St. Clairsville, Ohio, who was our host. A lot of good things. YSU's coming off all those national championships. They're
Right.
red and black, the same thing we were in high school as well. At Bel Air, we were red and black. So there was so much to be desired about wanting to be at YSU. But unfortunately, there was some unforeseen something happened there on campus that night while we were there. So it was something that kind of just rang home to me to where, it's just didn't feel comfortable for me. And we went to Kent the next day, and I committed to Kent the very next day. Loved everything about what they were trying to do. And at the end of the day, as a competitor, obviously they weren't very good. So for me, being a competitor that I am, I think I'm going to be the next great thing, that I'm going to come in and turn the entire thing around. So I committed to Kent the next day. Coach Groves was the head basketball coach at that point in time, was very open to me playing basketball as well, which was a huge, add in addition, because obviously my love for basketball was just as much or more than what it was for football. So, I committed to Kent that next day, and then there we are.
So do you mind if I jump in, Ethan? So
Oh,
what,
right ahead, sir.
so you said you were, basketball fan, or had the love of basketball more than football, but you played football first and then did basketball kind of later in your Kent career. Did you have to commit to football first, or what was the choice there to go with the football program before basketball?
Well, so, obviously I was recruited there for football. But, when the recruiting process was going on, I kind of let everybody know that had an interest in me, that, I wanted to play basketball in college as well. Obviously growing up, I love Charlie Ward, being a quarterback, a basketball player as well, watching him, and he's at Florida State and doing some of those things. So, I wanted to follow those footsteps, as, you hear a lot of athletes, they do. So, so when the process was going on, that was one of my conditions that I had, was, I wanted the opportunity to play both sports, and they were willing to give me that. So what's kind of crazy about it is that, so they were both open to me coming in and playing both. But I was a prop 48 at that point in time. My GPA and ACT weren't up to standards at that point in time for me to be eligible to play my freshman year. So at that point in time, yes, I was, so I stayed there my freshman year. I couldn't work out with the team because I was a prop. So I was a football commit. So I couldn't do anything with that or whatever. But me being obviously a love for basketball, when the basketball players were having in the rec center playing, and they were playing open gym, I was right side by side with them. So I was getting some rec in with those guys. And what's kind of the weird process of that is that after playing kind of in the fall, their season got over. I'm playing open gyms with those guys and just getting some run in spring. Coach Waters, obviously that was his first year there. They had offered me a scholarship to where I didn't even have to play football anymore if I wanted to. So me being as excited as I was, I reach out to my dad. I'm excited, like, Dad, like, I'm good. Like, I get a chance to just play basketball, because, getting a basketball scholarship it's very hard, because it's less numbers, right? Less numbers, less opportunity. It's a small opportunity for, it's just a bigger pool of guys that you're fighting against. So, I felt that, that opportunity was there. My love for basketball was huge. And, I was a year away from football, and, football's a grind, right? It's really a grind. So, but my dad, made me hold off to my commitment to football, which I'm glad that he did. So we go into, my second year, my sophomore year on campus. We report to camp in the summertime. And again, when I tell you it's a grind, man, it's a grind. We go into about 3 or 4 days at camp, and it's literally wake up at 6 a.m. You have breakfast, you have meetings, you have practice, you have lunch, you have more meetings, you go to practice again, you have dinner, you have more meetings, and man, it's just a grind, right? So, I do that probably for 4 to 5 days. Call my dad. Dad, can't do it. I've already talked to the basketball coaches again. Can we get this squared away to where, I'm just going to go and I'm going to just concentrate on basketball. Dad was like, nope, not doing it. You committed to football, and you're going to hold on to your word, and you're going to do that. So, I battled through camp. Todd Goebel's the starting quarterback at that point in time. I'm the backup. Have no idea how I'm the backup. And it's just crazy, because I think, when, we can all agree that there's politics kind of in everything. I was coming in. I was runner-up at Mr. Football in the state of Ohio my senior year. Probably at that point in time, probably the biggest recruit that Ken had ever had. At that point in time, coming in as Mr. Football in the state of Ohio as a runner-up. Andy Katzenmoyer had got it that year, my senior year. So I felt that they probably had to, make me the backup, just because they probably almost felt like they owed me to kind of do so. So, we kind of fast forward there. I make it through there. Gobes gets injured against Marshall when Randy Moss is there.
I was at that game.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because, I'm golfing. Yesterday, I'm out on the course yesterday. I'm playing, and a guy, pulls me to the side, and his brother was representing Randy Moss at that point in time when he was at Marshall. So he kind of tells me the story, and I was like, man, it's kind of crazy that, we're talking about this because we're going to talk about these things today. And I remember playing against Moss. That was my first game playing. I come in as a backup quarterback. I threw my first touchdown pass to my college roommate, who was Rashad Elby. He was my roommate. So it was a great experience for both of us at that point in time. And kind of the rest is kind of history from there. I think that, I don't know if we have a bye. We play Eastern Michigan the following week. Charlie Batch is there. We win our first game. Then we have a bye. Then, and Gobel's coming off of injury from having his concussion. And we play Central Florida that next week when Dante Culpepper's there. And I think Sia Burley might have been there with Culpepper as well. We have a shootout, 50-something to 30-something. It's just the shootouts. And I guess it's kind of history from there. So, it's just kind of crazy to hear all these, these stories and stuff that everything kind of comes back into fruition and, kind of see how everything kind of transpired there.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
You played against some NFL worthy players there, and you don't think, at Kent State you're going to be playing with that kind of competition, but man, you just listed all those guys that you were playing against. That's that's pretty amazing.
And that's really in my first year, it's my sophomore year. It's my first year playing, and there was just so many guys that when you go across, if you remember, Travis Prentice from Miami, Ohio, who at one point set the touchdown record for the NCAA. He had that record. Just you could go up and down the list of high quality guys that that you played against. That was in the MAC at that point in time, and with Pennington being the quarterback at at Marshall at that point in time. Just some high. You're talking about top 10 draft picks. Major quality at that point in time.
That was a rough homecoming game.
Yeah. It was unfortunately, right? So that was kind of the crazy thing. Like, I've played in a lot of homecoming games, whether it was ours or whether we were playing on the road, just because we just weren't very good, and so but again, I told you, before we got on air, like, those are things that I would never change because those are lessons that when you learn a lot more when you lose than when you win.
So was there as we were just talking about the competition, even the MAC, tough competition. What was it? Obviously, there's a difference between going from high school to college, but I would love to get your opinion on just like what was the most challenging part of going from a sport you dominated it in high school, and obviously you excelled in college too. But there had to have been a really hard transition to go from that jump.
I think that the transition really is the mental side of it, the grind part, right?
Okay.
Whenever, because, I do some training now with kids. Again, I have a son that's a senior. I have a college senior as well. And, I have some other kids that I work with that are in college right now as well. And, every piece of advice I give them has nothing to do with, because their skill set is their skill set. And, we'll keep on working with that, but the actual grind of being able to watch film and being able to work when you're not at work. I think that people think that, okay, when I'm at meetings, I'm doing my meetings. When I'm at practice, I'm doing my practice. And it's really what separates you, what you're doing outside of those hours, that if I can, it's just like when you're a college student, right? You talk about, you have to be able to manage your time. You go to class on Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 50 minutes. You have your hour and 15-minute class on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's about how you manage your time outside of that. Can you set aside, 50 minutes to an hour, writing down plays, watching film on your own and understanding how to do all those things? That's the grind that I think that, I look back now that, I failed at, because, I wasn't aware of that. I'm away from home for the first time, and it was just that grind and that hustle. And, I felt that, even my sophomore year, like, I did well, like I passed for a lot of yards, and that was just off of me going out there and playing in the backyard and, and not doing those extras that I should have been doing, that, that I felt that, kind of maybe cut short a little bit.
Yeah. To be exact, your 1997, You passed a 53.2% passing percentage, completion percentage, 2,707 yards, 7.4 yards per attempt, 32 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Mike, I think you have some numbers, some records that still stand for Jose.
Oh yeah, so I was doing a little digging, and you left Kent like pretty much leading in every offensive category they had. So here it is, 2024, 25 years later since your last game, and some records you still hold. So you're still first for career in passing touchdowns, first for single season passing touchdowns, first, second, and third for single game passing touchdowns, fourth for career passing yards, second for single season passing yards, first and third for single game passing yards. So I don't know if you ever follow the stats or still do, but you still lead in several categories 25 years later. And Kent's had some good quarterbacks since then too.
Well, it's crazy. I was rooting for Dustin Crum, because obviously he was close to really getting some of them, to breaking some of those. So I do follow along. Before my oldest son got into college, like we would make sure that we went up every year for homecoming. So we were, and then obviously with Coach Haynes being the head coach, Coach Haynes was at Kent whenever I was at Kent, so there was a connection there with all of that stuff there. OJ Santiago, who I didn't play with. Mm-hmm. He was on staff at one point. So, still try to stay close to the program, following along, whether it's just on Twitter, or whatever, or X, whatever it's called now. I'm sorry, X. So I do follow.
Oh, no, it's Twitter to me. Twitter to me.
I still call it Twitter. I know. So, I still follow along with a lot of the stuff that goes on there, with the program and different things like that.
Yeah. So are you, with all those records you still hold, and you said like you were just kind of playing backyard football, and so obviously immense talent there. The team didn't, do well record wise, even though you performed well individually. What's your thought on that? Like, I'm sure you're proud of the records. I don't know. I'm guessing a little disappointed by the team performance, or just how do you separate those two, or what are your feelings for that?
At that point in time, I told you the reason that I had went to Kent was, I thought that I could be the guy to flip the switch and turn the program around. And, you kind of get disappointed, and losing takes a toll on you physically and mentally. And, I look back and, I went through some times there that, even my junior year, we transitioned into Coach Peace. And it's wild because, you hear of all these coaching changes that go on yearly now, at every level. And I struggled with that because, when a new guy comes in, Coach Pease being a Big Ten guy, coming from Michigan State, you kind of come in, you have your set of ways, the way that you want to do a program, but the roster is already kind of set to what the previous regime was. So there's that, there's going to be that change and that culture change that's going to kind of go on. And I wasn't around for a lot of the winter conditioning because I was playing basketball at that point in time. So I'm trying to balance out being a basketball player, but still trying to be the leader of the team, being the quarterback. And, that long transition of go my sophomore year, we do well from an offensive standpoint, and again, I'm just throwing out stats here from an offensive standpoint. Like, we were top 10 in the country. In a lot of categories, and when you look at our roster from an offensive standpoint, we have Bobby Howland and Steve Zahersky, right? Offensive linemen who played in the NFL, right? Bobby Howland went to the Falcons, I think. Steve Zahersky ended up going. He might have. I think he played for the Browns at one point. And we had those guys on our offensive line. You had Ashton Watley, who was a senior my last. He was a senior my first year playing. He had an ankle injury and ended up going down and getting hurt, and it kind of hurt our running game. And against Charlie Batch and those guys, he had 370 yards rushing in my first start. So. When you look at that and you look at all the things, and we went 3-8 that year, but from an offensive standpoint, I thought that we were kind of turning the corner. And then Coach Peace comes in and he wants to go to a little bit more conservative on offense. So we were a lot of 4 wide. When you look at, 2,700 yards in 8 games for me, I started 8 games, and I threw for all those yards pretty much in 8 games. So we're throwing the ball 50, 60 times a game. To now, I'm in an I formation at times. we're running some speed option. I've never ran speed option before in my life. So now I'm having a battle with Coach Monar because I know that he's not sold into what we're doing. So I can't be sold into it. But now that I'm 46 years old and I see things from the outside, he's providing for his family. So he's doing what he has to do to make sure he has a job, right?
Yep.
So he hangs on with his job because of the core that we had. So that took a toll. It really took a toll, and it was an argument between he and I. And our relationship was really rocky that year. We go 0-11. So, and again, I'm coming from a program in high school. I had 4 or 5 losses my whole high school career. We lost in the state finals my senior year. So, I was used to winning, and from the competitive side, I wasn't used to that. And but again, that's what I told you. Like, those are things that I would never change because, those are things that have helped me become, a leader, a mentor, a coach, and understanding, like, being on all sides of the spectrum when it comes to winning and losing, and being able to, bounce back and try to find the half glass full side of things.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that I think as a parent, someone who has to give those tough life lessons to kids, I want them to know, like, it's the effort and it's not always going to go your way, and it's a tough lesson to learn. And then if you work hard and when things work out in your favor, you really appreciate all you've done to get there. And I know this is kind of an odd thing as a sports fan, um, watching all the Cleveland professional teams, watching, the teams that are the underdogs and they don't always win. You grow to appreciate it even more. Um, we talked a lot about, the Kent State program and the transition there between Coach Corgle and then Coach Pease. And Coach Pease, it's kind of, crazy, for as much as he didn't have, the success that wasn't there at Kent State. As Mike duly noted, obviously knew what he was doing and had some success in the NFL. Do you ever talk to him at all, or did you have a decent relationship with him?
So it's kind of crazy, and that's kind of the thing, right? He and I didn't have a good relationship, and that may be a time where maybe I should sit down and just reach out to him to kind of just hash that out a little bit. But it's just one of those things that where we just didn't have a good relationship because, again, me being a 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid who came to Kent to air it out and do some different things, and he's doing what he's doing, and me, being the young knucklehead that I was, I didn't like it, but my last year, he and I had some long trips from Kent because, they had the Vern Smith Award banquet was always at Marshall University when they were in the MAC. So, every team had their chosen player, which was, the player of the year for that team. So he and I had trips my junior year, and then and then my senior year as well. So, we were able to hash some things out at that point in time on those long road trips to kind of just, senior year was a lot better. It was a lot more competitive. I didn't play basketball going into my senior year because I did want to be committed to the team and the program. And but no, he and I, don't talk. Obviously, I still am in touch with Charlie Monar, who was offensive coordinator, and Todd Murgatroyd, who was my recruiting coordinator as well. So those are the guys that I'm most. And then obviously, again, Facebook is a great tool when it comes to things like that. You can still be in touch without being in touch, liking and commenting on pictures and things like that. So, even though that you miss a lot of years, there's still, that great, that great communication there.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I'm glad you mentioned like your coaches there too. And very interesting, very interesting insight. Now, skipping forward ahead, I don't mean to get ahead of the story. You coached football later, in your career.
Yep.
What did you pick up from your relationship with Coach Pease, with Coach Molnar? You had different levels of relationships with them, and so I'm just wondering, were there lessons learned that you took from them that then you applied when you became a football coach?
Yeah, so it's wild because I've had so many different types of coaches throughout, and I've always had a dreams of being a coach, a head football coach and things like that. So I was always listening and learning to what everybody had to say. I may have not have been 100% locked in whenever I was there, but I was always listening to things that would catch. And what's wild is that outside of my the leaner years at Kent of us not winning, I was playing in Arena Football League in Grand Rapids, Michigan. At that point in time, Sparky McEwen was our head football coach at that point in time. He is now a Division II college football coach, very successful. At that point in time, he's very successful right now, but he was our coach at Grand Rapids, and he had made a comment at that point in time, and he had said, I want the team to take on my persona. I want them to be a lot like me. So, me sitting back and looking at everybody that I've had, and I've had so many high quality coaches that, maybe we weren't winning or losing, but I was able to take so much from everybody individually, and kind of, just in those environments all the time, I was able to kind of, pull all those things in. And I can't say that, he's the only individual one that I'm going to pull out right now, but I think all of them have given me something that I've been able to, to reach out and have great relationship with all my players, and what their expectations are. And, and as a quarterback, not being the first one in and the last one out. I want to make sure as a head coach, I am the first one in and I am the last one out, because I want them kids to look at me and knowing that I'm out there, I'm giving everything that I have to make sure that they're prepared as they can be.
Can I throw out one more coach? So Gary Waters, really
Yes.
successful coach.
Yes.
You played for him, at Kent in basketball. Any lessons from him? I don't know, different sports, but just leader. I covered him at the Kent Stater too, and I was just impressed with how he was the leader of men at that time.
Yep. So, he would always say, he didn't care if you played 1 minute or if you played 32 minutes. If he needed you for that 1 minute, you better be ready to strap it up and be ready to give him that 1 minute you needed. So, that's what it means to always be locked in, because when your moment comes, you got to be ready for that moment, right? Because that 1 minute can turn into 3 minutes. That 3 can turn into 6. So, it's no different in coaching, right? So, if I have a kid that's from the football side of things, and he's a special teams guy, and I need you for 10 plays, and your effort is high effort, well, maybe I can throw you in on defense, maybe, and you can give me some high quality reps on defense that I need you. And all of a sudden, it just starts turning a little bit. And the basketball court is the same thing. If I can steal a minute out of you in the end of the quarter, it's the same process. So, that's what I learned from Coach Waters. Just always be locked in and be ready to go. Don't ever think that your number can't be called.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. I've had Trevor Huffman has been a very kind to the show and been a guest, and had a chance to chat with him, and he talked about the early part under Coach Waters, and then the transition to Stan Heath. So there was very, very interesting insights on the different types of coaching styles there. And like you said, being the person who's on the end of the bench, I mean, you've got it. There's going to be players. I think they were all fan favorites, like Ryan Lurkey. Always.
Yep. 100%.
So what was, this is kind of just a out there question. So a Kent State question. Favorite place to eat in Kent, on campus and off campus?
So what's wild is, I love Ponderosa when it was on campus, and that was almost our game day place that we would go after games with my family. When they would come up, we'd go to Ponderosa, nice and easy, right? All you can eat, whatever. During the week, I loved getting Damon's was there at that point in time.
Yes.
They used to have you could get that the big tray of wings, and it was like $15 or $20 for a huge tray of them, and they were thick and big. So Damon's was and when we moved here to Steubenville, Steubenville used to have a Damon's, and I didn't remember being at Damon's since we were at Kent, and then they obviously shut Damon's down here in Steubenville, so that kind of hurt me a little bit as well. So but those would have been my top 2 places to be at, from Ponderosa and Damon's whenever we were there.
Now, did you have a favorite cafeteria?
We're still a Rockneys fan as well. When we do visit campus, we do go to Rockneys. And then obviously when we're out of the area, we go to Swenson's. And how can you pass up a Swenson's burger and a milkshake, right?
Galley boy, that's right.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was in town when I come home to Northeast Ohio and see my parents and family. Always like to take the kids to the establishments that I grew up with and went to, and took them, to Kent State, and went down to Ray's for lunch with my dad. And,
Yep.
and we've gone, to Rockneys and this, that, and the other. But when you were, or in your post college career, so after Kent State, you had some time in the CFL. You played some indoor football. Why don't you just kind of share with us a little bit about some of the highs, lows, memories you had from all your experiences playing sports after Kent, and then give us kind of more of an update on the here and now.
Okay, so after Kent, I go to Winnipeg. My Saskatchewan had my rights. They trade my rights to Winnipeg. So I go to Winnipeg. First time really being ever out of the country. Had really no idea about the Canadian Football League. So kind of just learning on the fly when I'm there in camp. I get fortunate because, and as you see in professional sports right now, like, there's guys that come in that are just camp bodies, right? So you have camp bodies, you have camp arms. I was a camp arm. I was a rookie coming in. Roster was Kerwin Bell from the University of Florida, who was obviously a CFL, legend at that point in time. They had brought Kahari Jones in, who was a UC Davis grad, who's now a CFL head coach. And then Brian Ayotte, who from University of Montana, he was already a year ahead of me. So he was going into his second year. And I was just the rookie coming into camp. So I was just a camp on. Well, some things happen. We're playing in Hamilton for our preseason game. Kahari gets a concussion. Brian Ayotte tears his knee up. So I go in. I actually do well. We lose in overtime. Now, they only played two preseason games up there. So at this point in time, I'm pretty much on the roster just because I'm all that's left, right? So, I'm the third string quarterback. Kahari's only out for a few days, because he gets nicked up or whatever. So Kerwin Bell's the starter, Kahari's the backup, and I'm the third string quarterback. So that's how I kind of make my professional debut. I'm able to make the roster. I spent 2 years there. And then, I try out, I go into the Arena Football League. I had a National Indoor Football League, which was down here in Wheeling first.
Okay.
My high school offensive coordinator was the head football coach. And this was my way trying to transition into American football and play in the Arena League. I had followed, I don't know if you remember the name Mouse Davis. Mouse Davis was coaching in the Detroit area. One of the main, run and shoot kind of spread offensive guys. So I was trying to use the NIFL, the Wheeling Greyhounds, as an upstart to get to the Arena League. So I play here locally. We go through, we win a championship there. I cut up my highlight film on an old VHS. So I got two VCRs hooked to each other. I'm recording,
Kids don't know what we went through.
They have no idea with this huddle stuff, right? They have no idea with huddle and what we had to do to, so, I had the VHS tapes and I have to make all these different copies, and I'm going through the Arena Football League website and I'm looking at rosters and I'm sending out all these tapes. Indiana Firebirds call me up for a workout. So I go in for a workout. They end up calling me in for, after my workouts, they called me in to be on the practice squad. I go to be on the practice squad. I spend the rest of the year in 2003 at Indianapolis. That team transfers from Indianapolis to Colorado with John Elway. So when we talked about my favorite player being John Elway, so they then transitioned to Colorado. I go with them to be the backup quarterback out there. So, I'm out there. My second year out there, we win a championship. I'm the backup quarterback. I'm the holder We win. We play our game in Vegas. I hold for the winning field goal. We kick it, all that good stuff there. At that point in time, me being the competitor, I want to go out on my own. I want to try to be a starting quarterback. So I go to Grand Rapids. Doesn't start out very well. I end up having shoulder surgery on my labrum. Same thing that Drew Brees had. And, just nothing transpired from there. So I go from Grand Rapids to Kansas City, and then to, I think, Cleveland. I played for the Gladiators for about 6 to 8 weeks. Didn't go well, and that was the end of it for me in 2008. And I got into coaching in 2009.
Wow, that you kind of whirlwind. You got to see a lot. You got to do a lot. I mean, I talked to Dustin Crump. I talked to Dustin, up there in the CFL, and kind of got an idea. It's a vastly different game there, compared to what we see here in the States, in the NFL and NCAA, so on, and so forth. So you get done with your playing career. So what year was that with Cleveland?
So 2008 was my last year playing in the Arena League. 2008. I was cut from up there, and at that point in time, it was time for me to go ahead and just call it quits.
Right. So then after that, you get into coaching.
Yes, I become a head coach at my alma mater.
Okay.
They were going through a transition of just really some down lean years. So I go and I head coach there for 4 or 5 years, 5, I think. I transitioned into another local school for 2 years. Then my oldest son comes to Steubenville in 2016. They lose in the state finals that year. He comes in 2017, wins the state championship in 2017. And I've just been kind of training off and on. I was an assistant coach at Weirton, for a year. But because of my training and, and my want to be a head football coach again, I've been kind of just waiting out and just doing the training thing with basketball officiating as well. So now just kind of holding off that. And then once my youngest is done, then, God willing, if something opens up that's right up my alley, I'm going to jump on it and jump right back in this thing.
And I, read a great article in the Record Courier, and it spoke about how your journey and going back to Kent State and through Kent State University, the satellite campus, and finishing up your degree, and the great relationship you had formed with Kathy O'Donnell, and how she kind of assisted you with that. I mean, how lucky or how great was that to have the connections and to be able to go back and finish up your degree at Kent State? And how does that factor into where you're at now, being in education and having, having children and kind of guiding them through life?
So it's funny because again, we talked about, being a knucklehead at 20 years old, and I'm sure that's what Kathy looked at me like, oh my gosh, Jose. And we would have these conversations over the last, 5 years, 8 years now that her and I have, regarding our relationship, because now it's like we're very close now and talk all the time. And, when we're down in the Parkersburg area, we always make sure that we see each other, or she's in this area. So, and she's been huge in, getting me in touch with Greg Gloss. And I had to sign a contract whenever I went back that, that they were going to help me as long as I was 100% bought in at finishing my degree. And having 2 young kids, at that point in time, it was something that needed to be done because I needed to set, the precedence for them on what needed to be done for those guys to make sure that they're finishing their degrees. And then also to the point to where if I wanted to reach my goals and I want to be a coach and I want to lead young men, I have to practice what I preach. So, but going back to Kathy, and what I want to be what she is that no matter how hard I was with her, she was always, no matter how many years it was later, a call away to rekindle and help. And that's what she did. And that is huge, right? Because at that point in time, and I always try to tell my kids that, even though we may bump heads right now, you're always going to be able to call me and I'm going to do whatever I can to try to help you. And that's what Kathy did. And I can't thank her enough for that. And to this day, she's still trying to help me because, my oldest, when he's done playing, I want him to get into coaching, and I would love nothing more for him to try to go to Kent to be a graduate assistant. So I have her, reaching out to Greg Gloss, who's there now, and Greg kind of helped me as well as a connection whenever I was finishing up my degree. So, those are things that, that again, the learning that you have from being a knucklehead when you're growing up, right, in college, and you're losing and all those different things to, now in 2016, now I have to go back to school and I got to cram all this stuff in to try to finish up my degree. And, you learn to adapt and evolve. And those are things that you learn through life. And, that I hope that, my kids and, the players that I coach can relate and understand that a lot of times that, when I'm telling them something, I'm telling them from experience, because I got a lot of it, good and bad.
On that theme, and I think that's great because you have a really good story about resilience and overcoming. And I think we're all, about the same age, mid 40s, and we've all kind of gone through evolutions in our life. And I would love to just hear, like, leaving college, what was your goal? Obviously, you continued to play football. That changed at some point, so I'm guessing your life goals changed. And what was the point in your life that kind of made you realize that, hey, I need to switch? Maybe I need to go back, get my degree. Was there a moment in time, or was it a slow evolution? You realized this. So how did you evolve as a person from leaving Kent to where you are now? And I know it's a very open-ended philosophical question. I apologize for that.
But the thing is, and I think that, when it comes down to it, when you grow up with athletics all your life, and it comes a point where you're like, man, like, I don't know what else I would have, without athletics. And that is literally a degree. That is sitting and talking to you guys. That's everything that I have. That's meeting my wife, right? That's everything when it comes to athletics. So, whenever I was playing in the CFL, in the Arena League, so that's only a 6-month job. So whenever I would come home, I had to have a job. Like, I had to do something. So I was selling cars at that point in time. So I was playing football and selling cars. And I had a great owner. Jim Robinson was the best owner that I could have, because he let me pretty much make my own schedule. And so when I was gone for 6 months and I wanted to come back and work, I would come back and work. So once I got to my last day of playing, I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't just sell cars the rest of my life, because sports are all I know. And I have to be a way to, to give back. And my brother at that point in time, he's in high school. Coach Gina Morante, who is my head basketball coach at Bel Air, he's my brother's basketball coach at that point in time. So before I'm going back to play in the Arena League, he lets me come on staff and be an assistant basketball coach my brother's senior year. And that kind of got my juices flowing. Like, this is definitely what I want to do. Like, I've always wanted to be a coach, but I definitely want to do this and be able to, to come back and do this. So, I go on and I play. And then when it come down to me being done playing, I let a lot of places, like, you can't coach unless you have a degree, and you can't coach unless you have the hours that's fit to be a coach. So some decisions had to be made. So, at one point I was an outside sales rep for a recycling company that let me work around my hours to be a head football coach. But it was just too many bumps in the road. It was too hard. And then it just came down to it. I had to get my degree if I wanted to continue to coach. And that's when it kind of happened to where, if I want to be a coach and I want to keep on trying to lead young men and do those different things, then, I have to finish up my degree, because, I can't go to them and tell them all these, trials and tribulations that I have with no ends, with not a prize at the end, and my prize is 100% my degree.
Wow. A heck of it. I mean, it's an amazing journey. So you've touched on this. Your oldest is a grad student at Wheeling University.
Yes.
What is he, and you want him to, possibly go on, maybe be a grad assistant at Kent State. What has he been studying there?
So he has a bachelor's. He's a business grad for his bachelor's, and then he's doing marketing as his master's. So, and I actually think, because he was in his master's program last year. He actually broke his hand last year. He would have been done playing last year. He broke his hand, his throwing hand, in third game of the season. So it ended up working out great because, he's finishing his master's during his last year of football. So everything happens for a reason, right? There's a lot of things that happen, that we don't look at that point in time that, we think that are questionable, but everything happens for a reason. So he's in his position now, and I've talked to, because I go back and talk about Rashad Elby. Rashad is now a recruiting assistant at Penn State University. So Rashad and I are very close still, and all that good stuff there. And I've talked about, Javon trying to get down to Penn State. But Penn State is kind of like, that's an upper echelon that you got to have a grad assistant job under your belt before you jump into something like that. So, just trying to use some of these connections to help him at a younger age. If he wants to coach, this is definitely the best route to go and not have to try to backtrack getting your degree. I'm 46 years old, and boy, I wish that I could be a college coach right now. But, having kids in school and stuff like that, you're so much time away. So, definitely the advice that I give him now, do it while you don't have any family, family, obligations right now, and you can go out and travel and do those different things.
And your youngest is a senior at Steubenville. He is quarterback. Is he getting recruited to play in college, or what are his plans for next year?
So Aiden right now is he's verbally committed to West Liberty University. Obviously,
That's right.
Yeah, he's the Division II basketball school, top 5, school in the country when it comes to Division II basketball. Coach Hallett has been great with Aiden for 3 years straight. Has came and watched him play a lot. Their style of play fits what Aiden likes to do. They get up the court. He plays 10, 11 guys, being a guard. So it was just a great fit and a great opportunity for Aiden. I always thought that he was going to be my basketball guy. Javon played some basketball too, but I think he only played probably because I forced him to play a little bit, just because that's kind of what we do. But Aiden has kind of taken the reins a little bit. Aiden's already, through his junior year, he's already scored 1,500 points in his career. So those are things that, but again, he's a worker as well. Javon is a worker. Those guys know to work, and that's what we try to do. We always want to make sure that we're working, we're ready.
That is that's great, and hopefully they can have continued success and take all the lessons that you've given to them. Mike, I think you and we relate. We talk about this, the parenting and trying to pass on these life lessons. I know I don't know. I made the tough decision to tell my kids some of the knuckleheaded things I did, just so they know that I'm not perfect.
100%.
I did mess up and do some things that I look back on. I'm like, maybe that wasn't the wisest decision.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate that it didn't cost me, but it's those life lessons that you try to pass on to your youth, to the children and stuff. So I was wondering, to get your kind of perspective on this. Football, basketball, sports have changed, evolved over the years. And did you ever think, with all the data that was coming out from doctors, from your experience playing football, did you ever say to your kids, hey, I'd prefer if you didn't play football because there's this injury, that injury, the other injury that might develop? Were you ever concerned about that as a parent?
Never at all. Never. It never, and it's weird because, I didn't play tackle football until I was in 7th grade. Tackle football in Pee Wee was literally not even a thing whenever I was growing up. And what's wild, so when Javon was, littler, 6, 7 years old, we lived in Pennsylvania. And my wife, she grew up around Pee Wee football. So that was a thing that, she wanted the kids to do. And I was just like, man, I've never known this. Like, I didn't play tackle football. I played flag football. That's just what I did. I played flag football. So when Javon got involved, was never worried about him getting injured. And one thing that, that I think that I look back that was a blessing was, he had a great coach who was actually a wrestling coach, and the discipline and the toughness that they taught him, that I think that he still exemplifies now is crazy. And I think that helped him, away from, the possibility of getting, I mean, we can walk out on a curb right now and twist and break our ankle and do that, and I think that now, like, everybody, talks about the head injuries and different things like that. Like, the scientists and the people that are making these equipments, like, they're hearing those things as well. And they're doing their best to make sure that the equipment is so much better than what it was 10 years ago, let alone 25 years ago. So they're hearing the studies as well. So they're making it as safer than it was 5 years ago. So, again, the things that athletics teach you, it was never a question for me or my wife that our kids weren't going to participate in that just because of just being around. And, there's no, and again, I'm just speaking from a football perspective. Like, there's no better room than a locker room because it's the all walks of life, right? I mean, you're talking from kids that maybe, don't know where their next meal is coming from, to a kid that can provide 30 meals for everybody, and then everybody in between there, right? But when you're in that locker room, and it could be any locker room, right? It could be football, it could be basketball, it could be a softball locker room. When you're in that locker room, everybody's one, right? Everybody's kind of in that middle, and everybody's wearing that same jersey. So, being in those locker rooms was something that, we were going to make sure that our kids had a chance to experience.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, Mike, you're coaching your sons in flag football. Maybe Jose has some coaching tips for you.
Yeah, if you ever want to come to Arlington, Virginia, and be a guest flag football coach, we'll have you, because I'm just kind of winging it, but it's fun. You get to spend time with your kids. It's a great time.
100%. That's it.
And how
those are things you got to make sure you're good.
Yeah, I was going to ask you just the landscape of college football has certainly changed a lot since you played, since we were in college. How much, for better or for worse, do you see the impact of the name, image, and likeness and the transfer portal?
So, I like it. I think that it adds more parity to the land, to college football. I heard Nick Saban talk about it the other day when he was talking on it, and he was saying that instead of having your top 5 teams every year, now the pool is bigger. There's so much more opportunity. And when Aiden was choosing his college, and what I tell all the kids is, you go where you're wanted and you chase free money. So I think that, nowadays with this portal and the way things are going, like, you go where you're wanted and you go for opportunity. Because now with the portal and this NIL stuff, if I say that, and I'm going to use Ken as an example, because obviously, I want some of these major guys to go to Kent State. If I'm a 3-star or 4-star quarterback, why do I want to go to a roster that already has 3 or 4 3-star, 4-star guys when I can go to Kent State, who plays on ESPN, right? And I can go there and do well. And if I do well, the opportunity for me to move up is knocking at my door because of the way that the portal works now. I can also move up. I can also make money. So, if you looked at, what's the quarterback that left Kent, went to UCLA here recently, within the last 2 or 3 years?
Oh my God, the name is escaping me.
But it's within the last 2 or 3 years, because it was Sean Lewis's quarterback, right?
Right, exactly. And Sean Lewis, and what do you think about? I'm sorry, I gotta go off on a rant here. What do you think about? Did Sean Lewis get a raw deal by Dion?
So there's parts of me thinking that I think that Dion kind of did him a favor, right? Because I think that Dion did what he needed to do to make sure that everybody could see that Sean Lewis could coach. And we saw it live on national TV when they dismantled who they dismantled in their first game of the season.
Wasn't Colorado State? That was a heck of a game. But I know
they dismantled him, and Sean was in his bag, calling plays, was in his bag. And I think at that point in time, it showed that Sean Lewis could coach at that level. So even though that he kind of took his OC gig away from him halfway through the year, Coach Lewis's fate was already made. He already had, he already was good where what he needed to have done. So, while it looks bad for us on the outside, I think at the end of the day, he's a head coach at San Diego State now. I think it ended up working out well for him, right? You know what I mean? So, going back, with this whole transfer portal thing, like I just think opportunity is for the bigger picture of college football is just, it's so much better because if I go to Kent State and I don't do well and I'm a 3-star guy, I'm where I need to be at, right? I'm not a 3-star and I go to Ohio State, or a 4-star and I go to Ohio State and I'm a backup for 2 years. And all of a sudden now I just keep on falling down the ladder. If I go to Kent State and I'm a 3-star and I don't do well there, well, I'm probably where I need to be at. If I'm just there and I'm average player, then I'm probably where I need to be at. If I go there and I do well, now I can step up and I can move up the ladder.
Yeah. And just
go ahead.
Follow up on that. Colin Schlee was a quarterback.
There you go. That's it. Colin Schlee. There you go.
And he just transferred from UCLA to Virginia Tech this year. So he's transferred twice.
No. Oh, no. I'm not going to Blacksburg.
But think about that, right? Think about that opportunity, and maybe he jumped ahead of himself, but I'm sure in that move from Kent to UCLA, he put some nice money in his pocket, right? And you can't knock these guys, for doing that when we all know that next level is not guaranteed after that. That's why the NFL stands not for long, right? It's just not guaranteed. So you can't knock these guys for chasing money when that opportunity comes. But, the whole portal and the NIL stuff, I like it. I always wished it. And I always thought that instead of the NIL, I wish the NCAA just would have come across with a flat stipend for college athletes based upon the conference that you play in. Because let's be honest, right? Like, there's a difference between the Big Ten and the MAC, right? When it comes to revenue and things like that, so if I'm in the Big Ten and I'm playing for Ohio State, then obviously, my monthly stipend could be $3,000 to $3,500 a month. And we both know as a college student, that's a lot of money, right? That's a lot of money, and it's based on whatever the revenue may be. And, if I'm at Kent State, then maybe my stipend is $1,200 to $1,500 a month, just because it's based on the revenue from my conference. And I think that would we still probably have these issues when it comes to overall selling jerseys and stuff? I do, but the end of the day, there's some money in the athletes' pockets, because they weren't allowed to work and all this different stuff there. I think maybe that could have nipped some things in the bud and, kind of cut things in half if there would have been a little bit more agreement there, instead of, because we went from 0 to 100, right? Like there was no in between on how fast this stuff took off.
Yeah, you went from not being able to have, what is the famous story from the UConn basketball player? You couldn't have a bagel with cream cheese to now you could probably get like a steak dinner or something like that.
That's it, right? 0 to 100 fast.
Exactly. So now this year, this kind of is another interesting thing. The Netflix special on Connor Stallions just came out. And one of the things I was kind of fascinated by that I didn't realize until I talked to Dustin Crum was that the reason you all didn't use helmet communications is because it wasn't allowed. Because I'm like, why would you not use helmet communications? Instead, you got guys holding up poster boards and doing
that are weird, right?
and so I guess just, what did you think about that whole deal with, I guess rule violations are kind of rule violations in my opinion. But the idea that you could sit there and be like, all right, I'm going to watch these guys and figure out what they're doing. And why wouldn't the NCAA want you just to have the helmet communication to start with?
Well, I think it's because there's just some ethics part of it, right? Like, you don't think that somebody's going to sit there and videotape. I think that probably every coach in America can probably sit there and say that, hey, they're figuring out who the signal guy is during a game. And if you can catch a signal of something that you're going to do, then you're going to catch a signal. I'm sure that every coach in America has stood on the sideline and kind of took a peek over there to who everybody's got 3 guys signaling. So you want to find out who the master guy is and see if you can kind of catch something. So, but for the idea of filming and sending a guy to every game, it's obviously overboard and things like that. But at the end of the day, you still got to go out and play, right? Still got to
Yep.
go out and play. You got to make plays. Now, it's an advantage. It's an unfair advantage, but it's an advantage. So, it's crazy, and I'm going to be interested to watch the special to kind of see how in depth it actually was.
Yeah, very interesting. Now, along with your teaching, as you were telling us about, you teach at an alternative school. You are also a boys' high school basketball official, and as you were relaying to me, which is very impressive, you've coached in what, 3 straight state finals, and this past season you were the OHSAA boys official of the year.
Yes. So I just finished up year 9. I'll be going into year 10. And this is another thing too, to where, man, I wish that I would have gotten to this a lot earlier. Like, I'm 46 years old. I watch some of these guys on TV, and, I kind of see what my background is. And I'm like, man, that could have been a career that I could have chased as well. When it comes to athletics and staying involved, but, I'm fortunate enough to be in it now. And, we had some guys who were at the tail end of their career, who were state representatives from our area. And I kind of was able to kind of step in and kind of take over their thing. So I just finished up my 3rd year. I did boys 3 years ago, then because you have to go back and forth in the state. So I did boys, girls, and I just did boys again. So, just have been blessed with that, and blessed to be around the right people that have been able to mentor me. And when you talk about mentors, and I think that you have to have mentors that are going to be honest with you and kind of tell you things that you don't like to hear at times. I have, a referee buddy who got me into refereeing, and he would always tell me, like, if I had a bad call, like, man, like that call sucked. Like, you weren't very good there. And sometimes, and when you try to explain yourself, and I don't care, like, it was bad. So sometimes it's good to hear that, than to be in a locker room after a game and you're with some veterans and they just tell you, oh, I don't have anything for you. Well, you have to have something for me. Like, cause we watch guys on TV that referee the NBA, and they have to go to monitors, right? And they're the best in the business, right? I mean, those guys are the best of the best, and they mess stuff up at times, right? So you can't tell me you don't have anything for me. But I've been blessed with that. I love, it keeps me in the game. I love basketball. As I said before, it's my first favorite sports. Keeps me in shape. So, those are things that I love doing, and hopefully, God willing, my knees will hold up for another, 5 to 10 years. I can keep on running up and down the court.
Well, speaking of knees, so a couple things. One, are you going to be like the high knee referee guy?
No.
That guy's great.
That's the first thing you stick out to you when you watch a game, right? My man high knees it up and down. But I think that, he's either had a hip replacement or a knee replacement that I think that they have told him that will take less pressure off of his knees or hip. One of the two. I think that, don't paraphrase me on that or don't quote me on that. I think that there's something in that part of it to where that's why he does that. It's kind of crazy, right?
That is crazy. How hard has it been, or as you've officiated the game, the changes to the game? The things that we started to see when guys came over from like Europe, specifically the Euro step. I'm like, man, that's traveling. What's going on? And now, nope, that ain't traveling. I don't know what, but the game has changed so much. The physicality. And then I want you to weigh in, because you are a basketball guy, you are our age. I have to ask, LeBron or Jordan?
So I'm going to go into obviously the referee part of it first. From playing to coaching to refereeing, like, holy crap, the change in seeing things from different lenses. I was a knucklehead fan, yelling at referees in the stands. I became a coach, and yelling at referees over just nonsense. And then now, like, I try to be more open-minded with fans and with coaches, because I used to be them, and be a little bit more lenient, but to the point of just pick your battles. Like, every time up and down the court, I shouldn't have to hear you yelling at me about something, because my response is always, just coach your team, coach. And, when you're yelling at me, you're not coaching your team. So I just need you to do that. But the game has changed when it comes to officiating from me as an official and then as a fan, because there's some plays, you talk about the Euro step, right? It looks weird. right? Like your thought process is that has to be a travel because it looks weird. But a lot of it just depends on when are we saying that he picked up his dribble to now what's his pivot foot. And, being able to lock in on that, not only to being able to have the ability to lock in on that, the speed of these players has picked up. So all of a sudden now, okay, he Euroed, oh my God, he just dunked it, or he just scored. I'm still trying to gather what pivot foot he had, right? And it was that fast, right? So, from the moves changing to the speed of the game changing to the overall athletic ability has changed, from that grinded out old school Wally Zerbiak, right? Because again, I'm gonna throw out Wally because I played against Wally whenever I was at Kent as well, who was your old school fundamental, at Wally's world. So the game has changed from that side of it, from a player, to officiating and stuff like that. And to go into the Jordan, I'm a Jordan fan. His competitiveness, his refusing to lose as he got older. I'm just a Jordan guy, and I know you guys being Cleveland fans, I can respect LeBron and what he's done, what he continues to do at 40 years old. Like I'm 46, and and I know 6 years it doesn't seem like a lot, but the things that he does at 40 years old is just astonishing, and the props go to him for his ability to take care of his body, right? And how much money he has to spend to take care of his body to make sure that he's in the best shape of his life all the time.
Definitely. Yeah, I appreciate that take because I think that some people get lost in this debate, and it's totally different. It's like comparing Babe Ruth to hitters, baseball players of today. It's very difficult.
100%. Yep, 100%. And the idea is always, LeBron couldn't. LeBron's a physical specimen. Does he flop around at times and it makes me sick? Sure, he does. But the man is just an absolute physical specimen, and I'm sure he would have been able to adjust to the game back in the day as he has today. But again, I'm a Jordan guy. Jordan is the GOAT for me, so that's who I'm going to take, and that's just the way that I see it on my end, and I know that everybody because you see it all the time, right? The LeBron rules and the Jordan rules, and everybody has these different takes, and I just think, as you just said, like it's just you respect what they gave to the game and what they give to the game, because we can throw Kobe in there, right? When you think about Kobe's
an assassin.
When you talk about an overall competitiveness, right? When there's videos out and they have him side by side with Jordan, like their mannerisms and everything that they do is a spitting image of each other. So, and he gets lost in the conversation, but, the things that those guys have all brought to the game of basketball from different eras is something to be respected, and something that, we talked about coaching, right? Like you kind of take pieces, and I think that we get lost in that. So let's take a piece from every one of them and respect that and love that part about them.
Definitely. So just kind of some fun stuff here. We talked about this earlier. You talked about you grew up a John Elway Denver Broncos fan. So that we are pained here as seeing our youth are in the mid 80s, seeing our beloved Browns
drive, baby, drive.
Oh, the fumble, the drive.
And the fumble.
Oh, yeah, those are pretty hard. I still think Rich Carlos missed the field goal. It was too high. It was too high.
Too high.
No, what do you think about so we're about to get into the NFL season here. And so my first question, and Mike, jump in wherever you're at on this. What do you think, Jose, about Bo Nix getting the starting job in Denver? Was that kind of like the best of a bad situation there?
So I would say yes. I was actually hoping because, in the NFL, like, if you look at the landscape the way that it is, and let's talk about the top, 4 or 5 teams. And let's go to the top 4 or 5 teams and go over their quarterback position, right? And you look at, not many of those guys, and it works out to when you're a rookie and you're just able to come through, right? Like, you have to have that kind of that veteran, to kind of mold and do all those things. And I was hoping that Zach Wilson, being with Sean Payton, would kind of turn the corner a little bit and be serviceable, right? Because, if you can just be serviceable, now we become a little bit more competitive, and now if we're competitive, then maybe now he can, tutor Bo Nix to be the next guy in line. And we all know, like, and obviously you being Browns fans, right? Like we don't know if any of those quarterbacks that you guys have cycled through for all those years, if those guys really had any quality to be good quarterbacks, because they just walked into such bad situations. And NFL is about fit. It's about walking into a situation that gives you a fit. And I'll go back to Ben Roethlisberger winning a Super Bowl. He threw for 87 yards in a Super Bowl when they played in Detroit. I don't know what his overall stats were, but he threw for 87 yards. That's what I know. How many quarterbacks can you go to that threw for 87 yards and won a Super Bowl? You probably can't, but it was a great fit for him to let him mold into be the Hall of Fame quarterback that he was. I'm not sure that Denver's in that position to where they're going to be able to mold Bo Nix. I hope so. I hope that Sean Payton, because I do have a lot of respect for him. I think he's obviously an offensive guru, can do all those things. And maybe that it was literally just the best move. Like they tried Zach Wilson and he was just so bad that it just didn't work.
Do you ever get frustrated having played the position going, I could have done that?
No, because I know if I go out there right now and I got hit, I'd probably melt.
Now, do you see? Okay, so as a coach and former player, I am amazed when guys like, and I can only speak this from watching the broadcast, when like Tony Romo sees the play before it happens. So I was just wondering, when you watch the game, are you able to pick things out at that point? Or are you not even trying to do that?
So I do, like, so, and that's kind of the learning part of this, and always being a fan and a coach of the game. So, I've done some broadcasting as well over the last 3 or 4 years.
Oh, fantastic.
So I've gotten to that, and I love Tony Romo. A lot of people don't like him because I think that he is so in depth about it, and some of the stuff that he talks about, like, I love watching the Manning cast on Monday Night Football. I don't watch the regular one. I listen to those guys because I want to learn just as much as those guys. If those guys are willing to give out free information, I'm going to be there to collect it. So whenever I'm watching games, I'm trying to listen and learn. And, and we had talked about in text messages, I was really frustrated with Russell Wilson this past year. But we talk about fit. Can we look back and maybe the Seahawks was a great fit for him? They had the Legion of Doom defense and had a great running game, and he was great with his legs and play action, as opposed to when he goes to Denver, like, we need way more than that, right? We need you to be able to stand in the pocket, make some throws, and do some different things. And then when you do break out, you don't have those young legs anymore. So, but I love listening to broadcasting from Tony Romo and those guys like that. And I do watch games as a fan, as a coach. But I would never sit there on some of these games and say, man, I could have did that, because, again, the speed and the athleticism of those guys at this level, is just, now there's some guys that are playing in other leagues, maybe the CFL and things like that I think that could probably go out there and do some of the things that those guys do. They just didn't have the opportunity. I do.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's about being right place, right time, right?
Yeah, absolutely true.
So, all right, make your prediction here as next week starts the NFL season and college football. And I was still steamed that they even call a thing called week 0, but all right, what are your predictions in the NFL and college football for the upcoming season?
Oh man, it's hard to go against the Chiefs and Mahomes. It really is. But I think I'm gonna go with the 49ers this year. I think that hopefully with Shanahan down there, again, same thing, right place, right time. I think Purdy's going to be just fine. He's a guy, because let's talk about him, right? He's a 7th round draft pick. Doesn't have the strongest arm in the world. So let's say that maybe he's with another organization, and we probably never even heard of him, right?
Exactly, Tom Brady.
It's the same thing. Like, it's so much fit, when it comes to this. So, and when we talk about the quarterback situation, and we talk, there's not a lot of open teams that are going to jump up and be a Super Bowl contender in the NFL, right? You have 4 or 5 that are literally going to be the contenders every year, because It's just the lay of the lay of the land right now. And my sleeper, who I'm going to go with, is going to go with the Lions. I like the Lions. You know, I like everything they're doing over there. You talk about a new life. You know, their quarterback out there.
Golf.
With the Goff, right? And he did well, with the Rams, but just, and Stafford was the same way, right?
Yep.
Great. I so wanted Denver to grab Stafford when he was available from Detroit. I wish that they would have gave away the farm to grab him, because he's a grinder, he's a workhorse. But it's the same thing, right? He's able to get over the hump and get himself a Super Bowl championship. When the Rams bought theirs, when they bought all those guys that year, and they were able to get that championship. So, but my sleeper is going to be the Lions, but I'm going to have to go with the 49ers this year.
I know that one of our fellow Kent Staters, Jason Heron, big Lions fan, he would definitely appreciate that. I'll make sure when I talk to him, if he's not watching, I'll let him know that. What do you think about college football? That's getting up here. I mean, we were just talking about the 12-team playoff, and obviously you've got your powerhouses, in the Big Ten and in the SEC, and I guess I can't say the Pac-12 anymore. That's another story. No. Do you think it's going to be a showdown here? Alabama, they lost a lot, losing Nick Saban. Michigan, they certainly lost. They had many players get drafted, and so it's going to be difficult for them. I don't know. Obviously, Ohio State, I know there's been lots of talk that they bought a $20 million roster or something.
And that's it, right? With the quarterback and and there's things, I've been reading about the quarterback and, how, he's able to run the ball and, having Chip Kelly in there and different things like that. And then, this is why I love Twitter, right? Because, I love being on Twitter and I love going through and reading the comments because you can get some high quality information on comments from people that comment, because some of them comment some just out of this world stuff. But then there's some quality comments. And, and one of the comments about him out there was that, when he was at K-State, he still lost his job to an 18-year-old incoming freshman. So what makes you think he's going to be any different? But at the end of the day, it's about fit, right? Maybe this is going to be a better fit for him. And again, they have a roster that is the best on paper in college football. I mean, if you're just going to close your eyes and you're going to pick somebody, I mean, that's going to be your best bet to go through and pick. But, and I can be honest with you and tell you that outside of that, like, I don't even know who I would tell you, because there's so many moving parts in college football now to where you really don't know. I mean, we can't rule out Florida State now, even though they just lost the other day.
Right. They're still, that's all they got to do is win their conference and they're in the playoffs.
It's an automatic bid, right? So, you're better off losing now to kind of figure some things out and do that. So you can still win your conference and be just fine. So, there's going to be a lot of moving parts. I love the playoff scenario. You can still make money and do all that stuff. I mean, FCS, Division II, Division III, they've been having 16-team playoffs for years, decades, right?
Yep.
Like, what's taken us so long in the NCAA to be able to do this, right? What's taken so long?
Money.
And that's it. But they can still make their
absolutely,
and name all those, those bowl games. They can still do all that stuff, right?
Yep. I call those the WGAS bowls.
Who gives a shit, huh? Yeah.
I mean, I think it's great because we saw Kent State. They go to the Potato Bowl, and then they play the GoDaddy Bowl, and they beat Jordan Love.
That's it, right?
I mean, that was amazing that they did that and they battled, and that's awesome. But ultimately, I always am like, why are we're playing all these bowl games? And it became the exhibition, and players are like, I'm out. It's not for a championship. What am I doing?
But I think that we can still have those bowl games because, for us being football junkies and, it's a Wednesday afternoon during Christmas break and they got the Idaho Potato Bowl going on. What else are we going to watch? Because it's football. So we're watching football. So you can still have those bowl games or whatever, but your major playoff, 12 to 16 teams or whatever it is, can still be your Fiesta Bowl or, Orange Bowl or, whatever bowls that they have that are out there now. Like, that's what you can still name all those.
Yep, absolutely. So all right, last question here, because going to basketball, we've kept you way too long, Jose, but thoughts on the Cavs this coming season?
At the end of the day, I'm an NBA fan. I'm not a Cavs fan by any
Right.
means. You know, when LeBron was there, you know, I would follow them. You know, not always rooting for them. I was a Celtics fan because I'm a huge Ray Allen fan. So wherever
Okay.
Ray played at, you know, I kind of followed him. That was my team. I was fortunate enough to watch Ray Allen play. But going, you know, I like Donovan Mitchell's still there, right? Is he still there?
Yep.
Because there were some trade rumors at one point that they were going to cut him loose and they were going to trade him.
Nope. He signed the entire core four is back. They got, now let's see, Mike, remind me, they extended Mobley. They gave a new contract or of like a 3-year, $90 million to Jared Allen.
Okay.
Yep.
Garland is still under contract, and they gave the extension. They re-signed Mitchell. So the core four is still there. They really haven't, they don't have a lot of money to do things. They added Jalen, the guy from Cal in the draft, Jalen Tyson. They've still got Struce. They've got the minivan. Those types of guys. I was just curious to see if you had any thoughts on like where
Obviously
they have, and you had to be happy with your Celtics.
Yeah, 100%. You know, and when you look at their roster and, you know, and see, you know, with the addition of Drew Holiday and how he was able to kind of get them over the hump. Now, I'm not a current Celtics fan. I was only a Celtics fan when Ray Allen was there.
Okay. Okay.
For me, I'm kind of, it's when in professional sports, I kind of like individual players,
Okay.
especially on the basketball side. I'm still a Broncos fan, but the NBA, I love just watching the games and watching some individual players and what they bring to the table. But watching the Celtics and kind of how they, kind of molded everybody together with Jaylen Brown and Tatum and Drew Holiday being the defensive guy, then watching him in the Olympics and seeing how he was able. And then, Derek White is a great underdog story, and to listen to his story. So, but, not a huge, NBA fan when it comes to following, some of those things like that.
Absolutely.
For predictions.
Fair enough. That is fair enough. Hey, let's hope that Kent State can be rocking out the Mack Center and Dick Stadium this season. I drove all the way to Ohio to see that Mac championship game against Akron.
The timeout late, right? That was tough.
The foul. Oh,
yeah, the foul because they thought that they were down. Those are things that, and to go into everything that we've talked about today, that that I've learned the most, going through life is just communication, right? Communication is key, right? If we would have had proper communication at that point in time, maybe that wouldn't have happened, right?
And that's what Coach Sendy said after it. Poor Julius Rollins. I mean, he had some blunders and some great plays down the stretch. And I'll tell you what, Mike, I don't know if you saw any of this reaction from your vantage point, or whether you were at home. But I mean, I saw people on social media and people were just brutal, talking some smack. I'm like, that's terrible.
Wow, it's wild. Yep. Go ahead.
Oh, I was he's still a college kid. I mean, I'm sure you went through it too, getting criticized for certain plays, and people have to have more respect. You didn't have social media though when you were playing, which I'm probably thankful for.
Not at all. But it's really just the landscape of where we're at in life now. When it comes to he is a college kid. He didn't do it on purpose. So that's one of the things that we have to look at. That he didn't do it on purpose. We make it a tradition now for the last 2 years. My youngest and I, so we go up for the MAC tournament every year now.
Oh, fantastic!
And we go up and we spend the 2 days up there. Now, it's always been cut short because of my referee schedule and things like that. But we always go up. So we'll go up for the games on Thursday, and then we'll come back on Friday. But obviously, we'll watch the championship game on TV on Saturday. And Akron's coach, the assistant coach, is Dustin Ford. Dustin and I played against each other in high school. He's a Cambridge high school graduate. He went to OU whenever I went to Kent. We played against each other in college as well. So, and what's crazy is that there was a snowstorm this year, and Akron and Kent played at Kent. And it was on one of the TV networks or whatever. My wife, myself, and one of my official buddies, we decided on the last minute, let's drive up there. So we got to go up there. Kent was down by, 15, 20 early. They ended up fighting back, got down close. The gym was just unbelievable atmosphere. I absolutely loved it. And we've actually probably gotten to more basketball games over the last few years than we have football games. So we do make that, drive up there a lot. And it's great to be able to see kind of how the place has evolved. And, and let's be honest, it's a basketball school now.
Yeah. And I know you, and I just want to, close with this because I didn't want to forget this. You had mentioned you're headed up for like a reunion to see the football team in the game at Pitt.
Yeah, so Kent plays at Pitt on Saturday. Eugene Baker, a wide receiver, he lives like 2 blocks from the stadium. So he's kind of gotten he's kind of gotten everybody together to come into town. So, I'm definitely looking forward. It's actually a great football weekend for me and my family. My oldest son opens up tomorrow night against Mercyhurst.
That's where my ex-wife went to school. So beat them in, please.
That's always the goal, right? So, and then my youngest plays on Friday nights, and then we'll be going up to to Pitt on Saturday. So, and then I'm going to need Labor Day weekend to recover from this weekend. So.
Fantastic. Well, Jose, thank you so much for being so generous with all of your time. We really appreciate having you on. You're welcome back anytime. Would love to kind of, I'd love to break down some film.
Most definitely.
I'm gonna order the all 22 and we'll put it up and we'll talk about the plays that worked and didn't work and why, because that's fascinating to me when we see that, and coaches get criticized when it goes right, you're a genius. When it doesn't go right, you're a bonehead. So yes, thank you so much, Jose. This has been a pleasure having you on. Mike, thank you as always for all your time this evening away from the kids as well. For you, Jose, good luck this weekend with everything.
Thank you.
And that is going to do it for us tonight. So for our guest, Jose Davis, for my co-host, Mike Rasinski, I'm Ethan Greenberg, and you've been watching Going nuCLEar, full-blown coverage of the